Hey, welcome back. In this video we're making a red string sliding knot bracelet. This design has two sliding knots which slide along to adjust the size of your bracelet. It also has a centre bead which we've secured in place with a barrel knot on each side. For this design we're using 60 centimeters of 2mm satin nylon cord, and we're using a bead with a hole big enough to fit over our thread. So we start by placing the bead onto our cord, then putting the ends together and following it back down to the middle, holding that bead right in the middle, and we want to find the spot just on the right hand side of the bead. So holding that point with our left hand, then with our right hand we bring this cord around our finger 3 times to create 3 full loops around. So you should have your loops here, and we just hold onto them gently and remove them from our finger. Then bring the end around and place it down all 3 loops, pulling it out the right hand side and then gently pulling our knot down tight onto that point in our cord. Once that knot is nice and tight, we can swap our cord onto the opposite side, pulling that bead up against that first knot and then repeating the same process. So holding our cord just on the right side of the bead and then bringing the cord around our finger 3 times to make 3 full loops around. Gently holding our loops and removing them from our finger. Then bringing the end of the cord around and placing it down all 3 loops, pulling it out the right hand side and then gently working our knot down nice and tight. This time we really want to go slow and work that knot so that it sits right up close next to the bead, holding that bead in place so that it doesn't have much movement. So I'm gently pulling that cord out and wriggling that knot down so that it sits nice and tight and tidy. Once those knots are both nice and tight and you're happy with how your bead's sitting, you don't want it to have too much movement in the centre. But if you're happy with it so far, then just pull your ends out and make sure they're nice and even. If not, you can just cut the longer end off to even them up. It's a lot easier to keep our bracelet even if we've got even cords. Now onto the sliding knots for our bracelet. So laying our bracelet down with our cords overlapped and this left side cord on the top. Gently picking it up and holding it with this left side cord at the top, making sure we've got a little bit of length on this cord. And now we bring it over the front, down and around the other cord to form our first loop here. And then again over the front, down and out the back for a second loop. Now we bring the end around and place it down both loops, pulling it out the right hand side and then gently pulling our knot down nice and tight and tidy. So that should be your first sliding knot. Now we swap our bracelet onto the opposite side, holding it in our left hand with this left side cord at the top. Then we bring it over the front, down and around that other cord to form our first loop here. And again over the front, down and around for our second loop. Now bending the end around and placing it down both loops, pulling it out the right hand side. Pulling this knot tight, we want to pull it down so it sits even with the knot on the opposite side. So just gently working our knot down tight so that it sits in the same position. Once you're happy with it, you want to extend that bracelet and try it on for size, making sure it can extend big enough to fit over your hand and onto your wrist. You can always untie and retie these knots until you're happy with it as well. But if you are happy with it, then you can cut these ends off just outside the knots and cinch them with a lighter so they don't fray.